Jaunique Sealey, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
So, as a social media expert, guru, everything, you've said in your writings that a lot of people tend to take a platform view of social media. What kind of view do you think they should be taking?
I think they should take a view of people. So I think if you have a message in general or a product or something that you feel is worthy of an audience, you should know who your audience is. And we were just talking a bit earlier, I was talking to a group of friends about social media. Sometimes people say, well, it needs to be complicated. I need to know about the newest technology. I need to be on every single platform. And I say social media is not rocket science. It's social science.
Right.
And complex is not necessarily better. So the basics are understanding people and really forging a authentic connection with people and using the platform to serve that purpose.
So who is their audience then? I mean, is it teenagers, young people? Is it everyone?
I think it depends. It could be everyone, but in most cases, it's a very specific group of people. So it depends on the product. It depends on the platform. It depends on the person, the brand.
Right.
So every brand, you should know, as a brand or as someone that's looking to build an audience, who those people should be. Who the people are that most resound with your message. And it doesn't necessarily mean just because it's social media that it's all young people. And it doesn't necessarily mean that because one platform works for you that it's just those people. So It could be a mix.
Do you think people have, I mean, when I say people, do you think like corporations who employ social media, do you think they have any idea what they're doing? Or, I mean, are they there? Do they understand what you're trying to tell them?
Well, if they've hired me, they do. But I can't speak for other people. But I think a lot of times corporations tend to miss it. I think that, and this is something that I actually think is a little bit radical, the way that I look at it. I think that if you're going to use social media, it's a platform for people to connect with people. So if you're a company, your challenge is to become a person to connect with other people, which doesn't necessarily jibe with the whole context of being a corporation. So I think the challenge for these companies is to figure out how to be a person authentically communicating with the people that make up their audience. Right. So most corporations, they don't think like that. So.
And how does that work? I mean, so, but not just corporations. I mean, so you're very well known for the Lady Gaga tour, right? And for handling social media and stuff like that. But even when it comes to artists, I guess this kind of active engagement that artists have. Yeah. How do you create this? I guess, is it an illusion that everyone's your friend and you're talking to that one person? Yeah.
Well, with the Lady Gaga albums, the Born This Way album, when I was heading the agency, one of the things that we were charged with was coming up with touch points where authentic connections into certain audience segments that would bring people into the project. Right. So there were things that could relate to, let's say, fashion, the fashion community, or the fantasy readers. There was something with unicorns, so, but it's creating an authentic way to connect with certain audiences. So, and I think one of the things with Lady Gaga and brands that I work with generally, and have worked with, is that creating that connection has to be authentic. I mean, you can't artificially make people feel like you care about them and sustain that. At the end of the day, somebody's going to catch on. People are smarter than we're smarter than we look. Yeah. So it has to come from somewhere authentic.
I guess with Lady Gaga, it's easier because of personality, even on stage. She tends to connect to an audience. I saw her in concert in Singapore, and she tends to connect with the audience on a personal level, even though there are 11,000 people there, right? But what happens, going back to this idea of corporations as people, and if you take a massive corporation, if you take Microsoft, Coca-Cola, whatever, all these massive corporations, how did they do it? I mean, what's that angle there when you don't have a personality behind it?
Well, the thing is, like, for example, Coca-Cola, right? I saw a truck one day, and I was in Los Angeles, and Coca-Cola truck, and it was saying that the truck was all over the truck branding that they were hydrogen efficient.
Okay.
And I was like, oh, look what Coca-Cola is doing with their branding.
Yeah.
And I tweeted that, and Coca-Cola wrote me back.
Right.
And they were like, oh, thanks for the shout out, and they signed it. The person that actually wrote it on behalf of Coca-Cola signed it.
Right.
So it winds up that brands are getting smart about this and bringing in people who are social media savvy.
Yeah.
That are employed or affiliated with the brand to speak on their behalf.
Right.
But it's still a person. So it felt very individual. It felt very authentic. It was actually a communication.
And you're dealing with a person and not just a name.
It wasn't a Coca-Cola bottle.
Exactly.
It wasn't the slogan.
Although I've had many conversations with Coca-Cola bottles.
Well, okay.
Let's talk about, crisis management over social media, because that's becoming a very big deal now. People tend to screw up.
Yes.
And what is the best angle? I guess, what if someone says something silly on social media? And we're talking about pop stars and artists and stuff. How do you... I'm not going to say feign, but how do you be apologetic on something with 140 characters?
You're asking great questions.
Okay, thank you.
This is great. Well, with crisis management, I think the thing with social media is because it's so authentic and we're human, we're going to make mistakes. And I think a lot of people actually don't get involved in social media, especially on the brand side, because they're afraid of making mistakes. Mm-hmm. When you do, I think you have to be honest and just say, you know what, I really screwed that up. And I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And put the correction out there right away.
Right.
And the thing is that you don't want people telling your story for you. No. You always want to be the one telling your story. And the way I deal with it, and the unfortunate part about the internet is I think sometimes people feel free to be negative where they wouldn't, otherwise.
Anonymity is horrible that way. Yeah.
So I always say the thing to remember is that the truth doesn't have to be defended, just displayed.
Right. Oh, very good. I like that. I might steal that as well.
Okay. Well, I have witnesses now.
Actually, you're on tape right now.
I know. But you can borrow.
And what about controversy? So, with little things like Lady Gaga being, say, banned from Indonesia, and they didn't ban the concert, they cancelled the concert because of pressure and all this stuff, right? And situations like that, is it important for an artist because there is this conflict between staying true to yourself and of course your marketing department going, hey, we've got 300 million there, that's 300 million potential fans, right?
Right.
And how do you bridge that gap?
Yeah. Well, I think, that was a decision that her management team made, and, that I'm not privy to the discussions that went on, in terms of that decision. There were definitely two different decisions to make.
Yeah,
you could change the show or you could not change the show. And, you have to, I think the decision that was made is probably consistent with what I've known to be the way that they view their creative integrity.
Yeah.
And you have to, kind of live and die by those decisions that you make.
Yeah.
And at least you maintain, your integrity one way or another. And I think, I think you do risk not expanding your market as wide as it could, but maybe you don't necessarily have to have every single person on the planet as your fan base.
But of course you do.
Of course.
Before we go quickly, Lady Gaga, does she just chill with coffee and cookies, or is she crazy all the time?
Well, I did not spend that much time directly with her. I will say the times that I did interact with her, she's very much what you would see on television. I would not say there is very much difference in the meetings I've been in with her. She was dressed just like you would see her dressed.
Fantastic. Meat suit then.
Yeah. Well, I never saw her meat suit, so thank goodness. But I will say that she's one of the hardest working people I've ever had the opportunity to interact with.
Fantastic.
And so that was a very interesting part of my career. Absolutely.
Cool beans. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank
Jaunique Sealey, everybody.